Okay, so let's open up for questions. Who wants to start?
I think you have to turn on recording for us to be able to record it to the computer.
Okay, let's see here.
The thing is, I don't think that's necessary for now, because what we're going to do, we're going to record it and make it available online, so everybody can actually watch the video on YouTube. So I think then
Right, that's true. Yeah.
that will set it. So that's if I may, I have one question. So in the Day0 material, there's a lot of reference to the 6 R's, and at the same time, reading the suttas, we see the reference to the 4 right efforts. Mm-hmm. So how do you see the relationship between the two?
Yeah, you will see when you read day 1, which will be tomorrow, it'll give a little bit more in-depth explanation. But the 6 R's is really the modern version, if you will, of the 4 right efforts. So what that means is the 4 right efforts and the 6 R's are intertwined. The process of the 6 R's, when you start with recognize, aligns with the first right effort. So first of all, let me just go with the 4 right efforts. The first right effort is the preventing of unwholesome states from arising. That is your hindrances and your distractions. The second is abandoning presently arisen unwholesome states or hindrances. The third is to bring up your wholesome qualities of mind. And the fourth is to maintain that wholesome quality of mind. So when you're using the 6R process, what happens is you see that the mind has gotten distracted and is no longer paying attention to the object of meditation. So when you see this and you recognize it, what you have done is you are preventing the distraction to further flow with your attention. So you prevent any further distractions from arising when you recognize. When you release your attention, which means that you take your attention away from that distraction and bring it to the relaxed process, which is to relax the craving, the tension that is a result of the craving in both the mind and the body, you are using the second right effort, which is to abandon the unwholesome states of mind presently arisen. And then when you come back to your smile, making sure that you are smiling, and come back to your object of meditation, which is the loving kindness or compassion or whatever it might be, you are then bringing up the wholesome quality of mind. And then finally, as you return and stay with your object, you are maintaining that wholesome quality of mind. And then you repeat whenever necessary, whenever your mind gets distracted yet again.
I have a question.
Yes.
About 6 hours. I'm wondering, when you have 6 steps and when it's like a 1, when it rolls like a 1, and the last step is repeat. Can you explain me more, how do you see the repeat part, and how can I maybe use it in a sense? It's not always the best time to repeat 6R. Maybe sometimes you just relax and release. I mean, is it always, you always 6R, or you sometimes?
Sometimes you 5R, which means you don't have to repeat. Hello?
I'm sorry, I have a problem with video. Is it only me, or is it
No,
somebody else?
it's my connection probably.
Okay.
What I was saying was,
yeah.
What I was saying is sometimes you just have to 5R, meaning you don't have to repeat, which means that so long as you are staying with your object of meditation, so long as you are with your object, your attention is on it, your awareness is on it, you don't have to repeat the 6 R's. 6 R's are only used whenever you see that the mind was distracted. And I've already said this to a few of you, which is that if you find that there are thoughts in the background of your mind while you have your awareness on the object of meditation, you don't have to 6R those. They will go away on their own because they have no attention that will feed them. But whenever your attention is no longer on your object, you 6R. And it's always the same steps. And it's a flow, as you said, it's all sort of one flow. It happens in about 3-4 seconds at the most. And so as soon as you recognize you are distracted, you don't have to say in your head, you don't have to verbalize, oh, I recognize. You just already know that you got distracted. In knowing that you were distracted, that's recognition, that's recognizing. In putting your attention to the relaxed process of the 6R process, you have released your attention from the distraction and put your attention now on relaxing the tension in the mind and the body. And so now you have already done the first 2 right efforts, which is the preventing and the abandoning. And now bringing up the wholesome state, you come to your smile and you come back to the feeling, whatever it might be. Metta, karuna, loving kindness, compassion, whatever it is. So it's always the same steps in progression. But the repeat is only insofar as whenever you get distracted again. That's all.
I have just a sort of technical question.
Yeah.
So from the resource materials, I see that we have some texts to read, some videos that we can watch. We have the interviews, we have this group sharing. Is there any guided meditation from you at any stage, or are we relying on the materials to guide our meditation?
So the materials, the suttas and the videos are really to start to get a understanding of the different parts of the Eightfold Path. So once you start to see the materials, you'll see that you start off with what is known as effective choice and effective application. And that's really talking about right intention and right effort. That's really the basis. And then as you get deeper, you go into mindfulness or effective observation, you go into samadhi, or what is the collectedness. We don't like to use the word concentration. I would rather use collectedness. But and then you start to get into more deeper subjects like karma and rebirth and consciousness. So these are materials to help you on your own self-directed meditation. I won't really be leading any kind of a group meditation. This is more of a path of self-discovery in your own time and the amount of effort you put into it.
Delson, if I may.
Yeah.
My question relates to the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, as in today's background material, and it is under the chapter of Wise Awareness in that translation by Tanaka. So there are the Four Foundations. Now my question is, when we speak, or this morning we spoke about the meditation object of this joy.
Mm-hmm.
Is this one of these four foundations, or does it include all of them, since there is a feeling part of it, the body part of it, and so on? I also have the mind. So how is the relation between one meditation object versus the four foundations here? And the second part of it relates to that, the capital D of Dhamma in the last one. Maybe I'll come to that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it really depends upon the translations, but the way I see it is whenever you are utilizing the four foundations of mindfulness. So what are the four foundations of mindfulness? You were using, you said, Bhante Ananda's translation, and he likes to call it the four resting places of awareness. That's another way of looking at it, let's say. But really what this is first and foremost the body, understanding how your body is feeling in any given moment. The sensations that are arising from the body is the second. Your mind, or consciousness they call it, but I call it mindset. And the reason I call it mindset is because a mindset can continually change, and it's a collection of thoughts that create a certain mindset. So when you get into the jhanas, each jhana is a particular kind of mindset because it has different kinds of factors within each jhana. And then Dhamma is really phenomena. Any kind of phenomena related to the mind, whether it's thoughts or emotions, memories, whatever it might be, formations, things like that. So these are the four foundations of mindfulness. And when you are practicing the jhana practice, when you're practicing metta and you get into jhana, the way you know you are in jhana first and foremost is your mind is collected. So collectedness, or effective collectedness, or right collectedness, is being in one of these four jhanas first and foremost. And going back to Dhamma, you have other aspects of it, which is to say you have phenomena related to the five hindrances. You are aware if there are any of these five hindrances in the mind, and anytime a hindrance is present, you are no longer in jhana. So this is how you are utilizing mindfulness, by seeing whether there is a hindrance present or not in the mind, which will let you know, because when you're distracted, you know that there is a hindrance present there. So then you use the 6 hours to come back. And as you're doing this, what you're doing is also starting to activate and balance the 7 factors of awakening, which is also part of the Dhamma aspect of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, when it comes to the 7 factors of awakening, they start to be utilized more and more as you get higher into the process, into higher dimensions of perception, let's say, beyond the 4th jhana. But for the time being, all you should know, if you're starting on the path or you're still working with the 1st to 4th jhanas, is if your mind continues to stay with the object and you're not pushing, because if you push, what's going to happen is you're not utilizing mindfulness anymore. You're using too much effort. You're using too much one-pointed focus. So you just observe. In the observation of that, you are collectively being observant of the body, of the mind, of the sensations, and of the mental contents within the mind. Because it's an open awareness, let's say, so in the awareness of that, you are being attentive to the feeling, but you're also aware if there are any thoughts in the background, as I mentioned earlier, or if the mind is being distracted, and so on and so forth.
So just to repeat for myself, the 4 resting places, or whatever you like to call it, are not just separate things, but they have been integrated in this one and the same observation process. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, there are different ways of looking at it, and on day 2, actually, there will be an entire focus, so to speak, on the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness. So when you watch the video and you read the material, it'll go even more in depth into it, and there are different ways of doing it. I mean, the 2 foremost suttas, which is number 1, the Satipatthana Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, and the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, which is identical except for the expansion on the elaboration of the 4 Noble Truths. But you see that there are different ways. You can either, let's say, divide it into 4 categories, let's say, and just solely pay attention to what's happening in the body. You can pay solely attention to what's happening in the mind or the sensory experiences that are arising. And in just the observation of it, in just the pure awareness without trying to control it, you will start to see insights into the body, into the mind, into the sensory experiences and the mental contents, because you start to see the impermanence of these things, and that you see that there's no controller there. You see that there's a emptiness of self in that. And it happens with continually being observant, continually being aware, continually being mindful, which is that whenever you do get distracted, you are utilizing the 6 R's, and the recognition part primarily is the beginning of that mindfulness. So in day 2, there'll be a deeper discussion on this, but for now, just know that whenever you are in the jhana, whenever you are staying with your object of meditation, with an open awareness that is being attentive, but not focused, not too concentrated, you are basically practicing mindfulness. You are applying the 4 foundations of mindfulness, because so long as you are openly aware, you can know that a hindrance has arisen or not. Whereas if you focus too much, you're actually suppressing the hindrances. You're not able to know when or where and how you got distracted.
Delson, is it advisable to look for tension when there is no tension? You are in a jhana and there is no tension experience. Is it advisable to look for tension?
No, you don't want to look for any kind of tension in the body. There was somebody who asked a question sometime earlier that when they do the relaxed step, for example, they don't necessarily find any tension in the body, and that's fine. You don't need to. Because the relaxed step is not only letting go of the craving in the form of that tension, let's say, but also tranquilizing the bodily formations. That's the other aspect. That's something that is mentioned in the Anapanasati Sutta, which is that when you breathe in, whatever you're breathing in, long or short, you tranquilize the bodily formations. So it's the tranquility, it's the tranquilizing of formations that is the deeper effect of the relaxed step. So don't go and look for the tension. If you are aware of it and you see that it is there, you intend the relaxed step to let go of that tension, which is that craving. But even if the tension is not there, utilizing the relaxed step whenever you get distracted will release formations, will let go and relax the formations, no matter how subtle they are.
Thank you.
I have some questions, Anapanasati. Sometimes, particularly when when I want to fall asleep, I have and then that's ability for me to switch to Anapanasati. But like Bhante Vimala Ramsey says, I apply the 6 hours. But is this okay for this retreat to now and then switch to Anapanasati?
I would say for this retreat, you really want to just stay with the Brahma Viharas or with the tranquil mind if you are at that point.
Okay.
In terms of, if I understood correctly, because it kind of froze for a couple of seconds, you were utilizing the Anapanasati for going to sleep, you said? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't see anything wrong with it if you want to.
It's very tight, difficult radiate metta.
I'm sorry? Please say that again.
I'm sorry, you dropped away. When I'm tired, it's difficult to radiate metta. So then I switch to Anapanasati, applying the 6 hours. But for this retreat, only metta.
Yeah, all metta. I think a sort of secondary practice, I wouldn't really call it a practice, but just a way of going to sleep is maybe if you can come back to the quiet mind, let's say,
Okay.
and just relax. Just use the relaxed step and nothing but the relaxed step. And that will definitely help you sleep.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about your recommendation how to meditate in a sense. Take a look at the clock and see, and then meditate as long as you feel you're going it. I mean, as long as you like. But I'm wondering, sometimes, for example, if there's 1 hour of meditation and you feel you could do more, how much to push, you know? Or maybe if you get used to this 1 hour, you feel like it's enough, but sometimes I have feeling I could do more if I push myself a little. I'm just afraid that I don't want to push too much because then I get the tension. So I wonder what would be your suggestion about timing, how to measure.
Number one, I would say sit for as long as you can. Maybe if you want to put an intention that you want to sit for an hour the first time, and then the next time sit for an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes, that's fine. Secondly, I would say that if you have the inclination to sit for longer, that is always good. That is always suggested. If you want to sit for longer, I would suggest you do sit for longer. But in terms of pushing, it's not necessarily pushing. I always like to look at it in the way of, let's say the mind, maybe the body is like, I cannot stand it anymore. I don't want to meditate anymore, let's say. But the mind says, well, I do want to meditate for a little longer. So you cajole the body and say, how about 5 more minutes? And let's see what happens for 5 more minutes. Likewise, if the mind is restless and says, no, I want to get out and I don't want to meditate anymore, in the same way you can cajole the mind and say, how about 5 more minutes? Let's see what happens for 5 more minutes, And treat the mind like a little child and say, just 5 more minutes, let's see what happens. And in that way, the mind won't be pushing, but in fact it'll just be saying, okay, and accept it, and then you can continue on with your meditation. I think we have time for a couple more questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do we apply this meditation and interacting with family and so on?
Can you repeat the question, please? Because the internet was a little unstable. Yeah.
How do we apply this meditation when we are not doing formal sitting or walking meditation?
Okay. And you said when you're with family.
During this retreat.
During the retreat, and if you're with family, right?
But or we are eating or doing chores or doing other work.
Yeah. You can bring loving kindness into your chores. You can bring loving kindness into eating your food. You can bring loving kindness in your speech. You can bring loving kindness in your interaction with family and friends. The more you do this, where you have an intention from the beginning of the day that I'm going to be loving and kind, or I'm going to be compassionate, and you set that intention, the easier it is for you to then come and sit and stay with that feeling. It provides a very good foundation. But the more you're able to cultivate loving kindness in a way that you can bring it to your daily activities, so you can do things with a smile. You can do your chores with a smile. You can do your chores with compassion, radiating. If you feel like when you're walking on the street, let's say you need to go grocery shopping and you meet people, you can send them loving kindness as you cross their path. And so the more you do this, the more in tune, the more in touch you become with the feeling, and the easier it is for you to stay with it and generate it in the beginning of your sitting practice.
I'll ask a question if no one else wanted to. And this is just or want to bring it into my daily life, and right now I have just like a lot of little things, like I've gone through a transition and I have a lot of technical difficulties in my job because of certain things, getting everything to work correctly. And so I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, I can, in the past, I've always done forgiveness with those things, but I'm thinking, I could do compassion with all that stuff too. And I didn't know if you had any other thoughts about that. It seems like there's a lot of complications in my life. They're not disturbing me too badly, but any input on any of that would be great.
Yeah. So number one is, this is also a great way, whatever activity you're doing, is to start to develop the foundations of mindfulness. And so what I mean by that is you can start to slow things down in whatever you're doing, and really slow your mind down and really bring it back to the present, bring it back to the awareness of what you're doing with your mind, what you're doing with the body, what you're doing in the way of the sensory experiences that are arising in whatever activity you're doing related to your work. And so instead you flip the switch. You don't want to come at it from where, if things are not working out, pay attention to where your mind is and how your mind responds to it. And then accordingly, if the mind, let's say, has aversion to it, you 6R it and then bring in with your choice of compassion, loving kindness, or forgiveness. But consider everything that you're doing in this retreat, whatever it may be, as a way to develop the practice through the 4 foundations of mindfulness and through practicing the 6 R's continuously. So anytime there is a situation that might not be going your way, or there are things that are coming in the way of resistance and things like that, you want to be able to practice mindfulness in that you want to slow things down, you want to relax. And this is something you will read about tomorrow, which is this idea of react versus respond, which means a reaction is really reflexive. It's just without thinking, without reflection, it's just the old part of our brain suddenly reacting and going into this sort of fight or flight mode, and then bringing up anxiety and stress, and then that brings up a lot of different thoughts about the thing that we're doing, and so on and so forth. And then this creates a lot of mental proliferation and obviously a lot of suffering, mental suffering. But if you respond, which is to say you pause, relax, slow things down, and then allow the mind to take some time to come up with a response that comes from reflection, that comes from understanding, that comes from compassion. So that also means that if you decide and choose to bring in forgiveness or compassion, you are actually responding, because you have allowed the mind the space to take a pause and say, wait, there's a hindrance arising here, there's a unwholesome state of mind arising here. So what you're doing effectively is using mindfulness to see that this is the kind of mind state that might be arising, and then replacing it through the 6R process with a more wholesome state of mind while applying mindfulness.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really works all together. It's just different parts of the puzzle, let's say, and they all come together and culminate in every moment if you do it right.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think unless anyone has a question, we can end today's session here.
Delson, thank you very much, and we end this session.
Thank you, Delson.
Thank you all. Have a great day, and keep on smiling. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.